I call the member for Sturt.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and I join with the other contributors who have essentially all made a very similar point. That is, we're very happy to be debating and passing what hopefully is the beginnings of reform and tightening of the law when it comes to the protection of privacy. I think it's fair to say that most contributions have suggested that we need to go further than what this bill does, and I strongly agree with that contention made in debate from other speakers. I mean, clearly, as when we had the debate recently around the Digital ID Bill, I certainly recall making this point. I think a lot of speakers made the point in debate on that bill, which was that we were really waiting for the government to tell us where they were heading when it came to reforms of the protection of people's privacy. And this bill would have been nice to have had sooner, and indeed it would have been nice to look at what this bill does and doesn't do in the context of some of the other legislation that we've had brought on for debate that is very relevant to the topic of privacy. We've got very deep concerns, and I think there's unanimity around this, that as data is much more abundant on people and also kept in a very different form to years gone by, decades, millennia gone by, where really at a computer screen a lot of people have access to people's personal information, and are the protections in our legislation strong enough? Clearly they're not, because this bill is the beginnings of reform in this area. I desperately hope not the end. And look, I commend the beginnings of some things that I'm sure most members think need to be more robust than what this legislation does. Yes, creating strong criminal penalties for breach of privacy and a incrementally improved civil framework for dealing with breaches of privacy. But frankly, I mean, this is an area of law, it's an area of dispute that I think is going to be extremely significant in the years and decades ahead. And I hope this parliament is always landing on the side of protecting the privacy of Australians, protecting privacy both where government keeps information and people within government have access to information of Australian citizens, and indeed where corporations and other entities in civil society are doing the same as well. So look, this is legislation that is the beginnings of heading in the right direction, but as other members have talked about in their contributions, we really hope the government's got a lot more planned than what is before us in this legislation. So given we're in the consideration in detail, my question would be to the Attorney-General to perhaps seek a clear understanding of what the government has planned beyond this legislation, because obviously speakers have talked about a desire for a lot more than just what's in this legislation to be considered, and I'm sure, I say in good faith that I'm sure that the government has got a lot more planned in regards to strengthening protections of people's privacy, but there are legitimate issues that have already been raised, and it would be good to know what, if anything, the government has in plans for further reform in this area, because this bill is the beginning of certain steps in a certain direction, but we certainly would like to see a lot of other issues around privacy protection considered. So members have talked about some of the specific elements in the legislation, like doxing, etc., and we absolutely condemn some of the awful examples that we've seen in recent times that this legislation touches upon. There are obviously a lot of other potential risks into the future. We mentioned that in the debate on the Digital ID Bill. I'm very concerned about the whole amount of data that governments in particular collect on people. We obviously reflect on medical data or other information that we are providing to government that's being more and more centralised and more shared, and protections and appropriate penalties to dissuade misuse are very important as well. And with those comments, I'll leave it for any response to the issue that I've raised.